And I know Alan has joined us, and I'm going to make you a co-host now as well, because, and there are some of you in your files under Scholars Services, you will see that LinkedIn social media is on there. And it has the description in regards to the stuff, and I'll have Alan kind of give you a highlight reel of that at the end as well. But the point here is he's going to go through all of these things that we don't ever really think about for the sake of LinkedIn. And the session was really fabulous last year, is how it ties into this whole process of things that we have been talking about. And for those of you, I know we already have some students that have bought that social media service. And so for those of you that have, there is a to-do that got created for you to be able to do what Alan requests in order to get your profile set up. So you'll just want to look at your to-do list in College Planner Pro in order to know what that looks like. So I'm going to stop my screen share. And Alan, do you have, I don't see you yet.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Awesome.
here. I'm gonna just share my screen and speak to that. So I can do that now?
You totally can.
Yes, please.
Okay, hold on.
Enhancement, everyone.
Yeah, just, there we go. Share that. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Is that up?
Sure is.
Okay. I caught a little bit, Crystal, of what you were saying about the demonstrated interest, and I think that feeds really well into what I'll be talking about. And this is, dealing, my specialty or my focus of my practice is understanding how the digital world we live in impacts college admissions or can impact college admissions. And I think, there's going to be some interesting information here, and certainly I'm going to go through this kind of quick, but keep it open for any questions that might come up. This is my favorite chart, and it's a lot simpler than it looks, but this chart is a year old, and it was put out by NACAC, the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. And it surveyed 185 schools. And I think, like Crystal had just said, it's really important to know your school. The thing about, large state flagship schools versus private liberal arts schools are going to be very different in what they look for in students. However, this survey, I think, is relatively important because the 185 schools that were surveyed is a very good mix of large public schools, smaller liberal arts schools, selective schools, not so selective schools. And what they were asking these schools to identify is the importance of these factors in admissions decisions. And I think, the top three, and we can't stress this enough, the top three here are grades, right? Strength of schedule, your performance as a student, grade-wise. Across the board, considerable importance. If you look at the last column, it shows the change from 12 years ago. I mean, continues, these elements continue to be the most critical part of your application. But it gets really interesting, I think, if you get down to the fourth one. Positive character attributes. I mean, most people, when they say, what do I have to do to get, to prepare my student or prepare myself for college, it isn't like taking an inventory of your character attributes. And what are they talking about here? They're talking about leadership. They're talking about intellectual curiosity. They're talking about ability to work with others, to collaborate, to problem solve. And it's very interesting that if you look across the board, from considerable importance to moderate importance, it's there. And yet it's really not spoken much about. We're going to talk here about how you can bring that to the forefront. And then you skip through essay or writing sample, then the next one up, as Crystal was saying, and I'm a big advocate because I think it's critically important. Colleges are trying to assess students' interest in attending. Now, again, there's about 1,500 four-year schools in this country, right? And they're each very different. They're unique, you know, in what they're looking for. But I think once you get past that, the large state schools, which have an inherent yield, and we're going to talk about that momentarily, or the really highly selective schools that you see in the New York Times or read about in the Wall Street Journal, those schools have a built-in yield and a built-in demand. But once you get away from those, a student's likelihood to enroll if accepted is a really critical equation that these schools are trying to figure out. You can go down the list. I'm going to move on here, but once you get after that, you can start seeing teacher recommendations, extracurriculars, rank, and you can look at the admission test scores. Now, granted, this is a year old, so maybe the 5% considerably important on standardized tests. Yeah, I think that's still a little deflated from the pandemic. That's probably going to, in the next survey, it will come out next year. So they usually do this every 2 years. I think that number will be a little bit higher, but I don't think it's going to be above, the character attributes for students interested in attending. So, one of the things that we talk about is there may be all these different colleges out there, but the business model, as I like to call it, of a school, I think these are the 3 points. Every year, a school wants to fill every available seat while maximizing their tuition revenue and keeping those seats filled and generating tuition until graduation. And, the way they do this, Crystal used the term too, institutional priorities. Again, we can talk about that a little bit later on. But they want to fill the seats by offering admission to the fewest number of applicants. Why is that important? Well, that's important because we've all seen acceptance rates, right? They manage to lower acceptance rates because that appears to be more selective. So what they're beginning to use is using data points to try to figure out, again, this is where interest in attending comes from, what's the fewest number of students I need to accept to fill my seats? Okay, and there are algorithms out there, there's technology out there that makes those measurements. They want to maximize tuition revenue, and they do that by, and I don't know if it's been covered here, but we might cover it a little bit later on, but this kind of merit aid, which is kind of incentive discounting to get a student to come and fill that seat. And then they want to keep those seats filled and generating revenue. And again, they're using data. They want to make sure there's a good character fit. This is where the character comes in. They want to make sure that if they accept a student who they believe is going to enroll, and that student actually does enroll and attends that university, that student's going to stay. And that what they're looking for is fit. And you've probably heard about this. Is this school a good fit? Well, the school is interested in the fit because if the student comes and it's a good fit, that student's going to be happy, thrive, and stay there through graduation. So these are kind of the data points that schools are looking for. And my supposition and my studies is that the traditional common application that you're learning how to put together doesn't deliver this information to the schools. It does not deliver fit. It does not limit. It does not deliver likelihood to enroll or elements of character. So they're looking outside of the application for some of these, for some of this information. And these are the companies that schools use, these are the companies that produce the tools, I should say, that schools are using to make these predictions, to make these assessments about their applicants. And again, this is apart from the GPA. This is apart from SAT scores. Okay, but this is part of the college admissions review process of today. And these tools are in just about every school. And they call them enrollment management systems, but what they're trying to do is capture a lot of information about a student that goes outside of the application. And here's like just a diagram of some of the data feeds that they're tapping into. They're tapping into demographic data. Zip code is very important. The school can tell, can tell the median income from zip codes. They are doing this from name by data from the College Board or ACT. You may think of them as test providers, but they are data sellers. They collect data about students and sell them at a high profit, right, to the schools. That's how you kind of are getting these emails coming in or these mailers to your house, through that. And interestingly enough, if you're looking at 9 o'clock over here on this chart and also at like 10 or 11 o'clock, they're looking at social media interactions, they're looking at web page interactions, and they're looking at SMS interactions, text messaging. So there's a whole slew of data feeds that they're using to reach these determinations. And I think they're easy, once you're aware that this is happening, it's easy to come up with a plan on how to leverage that. Here's just an example of, these are two of the solutions that get published. And again, these are the dashboards that admissions officers are looking at. And if you look at the one on the right from ATAT, which is the solution by Liaison, which is part of like end-to-end college algorithms here. But again, it's what's the likelihood that a student's going to enroll by life cycle. And what they're looking at is interactions and engagements. Same thing on the left. Okay, engagement summary. What are they following? What social media sites is this student following us on? What are they? It's all predictive. So again, I'm not going to spend time on early decision. Crystal covered that in a little bit I heard, but it makes sense, right? Why is early decision? Why are the numbers so incredible? And that is, well, the likelihood to enroll is 100% if the student is accepted. The numbers between early decision admission rates and regular decision rates, it differs in school, by school, but Tulane University, I mean, if you look at the numbers there from last year, it's just ridiculous. Early decision admission rate, 68%, regular admission, 1%, for an overall admission of 11. So what these schools are doing is that they're using this binding early decision as a way to control their yield and enrollment management. And it works. And that's why I don't think it's going away. I think it's answering the questions about likelihood to enroll that the schools need to answer. But short of that, because there is downfalls in using that, what are the other things, the other items that schools are looking at, to use predictive analytics? And one of them here is this. I always find this chart to be very interesting. And you can see this is from Pew, just last year, Pew Research. And this is from students. And the second one in there, the more interested I am, the more I interact with the school on social media. So you can see the numbers. These are the data points that schools are looking at. So if students are saying, the more I'm interacting with schools on social media, these are the schools I want to enroll in and attend. Well, if schools are trying to figure out likelihood to enroll, they're monitoring social media, right? That's a predictive element of trying to figure out that likelihood to enroll. It's really important to realize how far-reaching this stuff is. Like I said, if a college is actively measuring this activity, then why not just check the boxes and put yourself in a better position? Okay, that's what we're all about. And one of the ways of doing this, we're going to get into the social media momentarily, but one of the things, if you go onto the websites of the schools that you're looking, you're going to apply to, one of the things you should do well before you ever submit that application is go on the website, and you're going to find this tab. Here's Boston University, but it's the request information tab. And sometimes you have to drill down a couple of pages to find it. It's usually on the undergraduate admissions page. Sometimes it's labeled join our mailing list, more info, request info, something like that. But always click that link and fill these forms out completely. You'll see that it's pretty in depth, and you're really writing right into their enrollment management systems here. The most important element is your email address, and lately a lot of these are asking for cell phone numbers. Again, these are unique ways to track the students. Very interesting as well, because if there's parents on this line, a lot of times parents say, are told to, take, sit in the back, right? Not take control. But you can see here that Boston University anyway is checking to see if the parent is interested. What schools have realized is that parents have a pretty big influence on where the student ends up going, right? So again, if we're measuring likelihood to enroll, if accepted, right, schools are interested in what the parents are doing. Are the parents following us? Are parents spending time on the website? This all goes into their final determination. Once you register on the website, you'll see a lot of schools are using current students and highlighting current students and their interests and what they're all about. And if you look at a lot of schools, you'll see these students, come from all walks of life, different cultures, have different academic interests. And what they're trying to do is, like, if you can see yourself in these students, you spend time, learning about them. And again, this is how the schools tend to assess fit, by the amount of time spent on the web page. I know it sounds out there, but it's being measured. Once you register on the school's website, you can then follow them on social media. And schools are all over. They're on X, formerly known as Twitter. They're on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. Probably missing one here that I'm looking at, but you don't have to follow the school on all of them, but follow it on the platforms where, and I'm going to get into that in a moment, where you have built a profile that contains the content that you would want schools to see. Okay. The other thing before I move into those LinkedIn profiles, the virtual tours that now just about every school has, these are definitely data collection. I mean, you cannot really get one of these virtual tours without going through. They're usually put together by a company called Appley, which is another liaison company, which is related to ADHOT, but they're collecting data and selling it. So again, it's a good way to show interest by going through these virtual tours. Okay. I'm going to highlight how students have used LinkedIn, and I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn because we've seen great success here with using LinkedIn as a way to present your character, as a way to give them that element of character to the schools. And it's not a resume. I know a lot of high school students, they think of LinkedIn, they think it's just a job board. But you're going to see, hopefully in the next few minutes, of how it can really be a supplement to your application, a complement to your Common App. And I'm going to show you some statistics that schools are quite likely to click a link if you invite them to look at your LinkedIn. So, here's Pulak. She is now, when she was a senior in high school, put this together. She's an aspiring medical practitioner, and now she's a pre-med student at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Okay, and we do know that the University of Amherst did look at her LinkedIn profile. That's one of the reasons why we love LinkedIn for college. It's the only social media platform that kind of will let you know if somebody's looking at your profile. So we keep tabs on this. So here's the statistics. All right, Kaplan, the test prep company, has been doing social media surveys of college admissions officers now probably 12, 13 years, maybe even longer, maybe since 2010 or 20, yeah, maybe 2013, maybe it's 10, 11 years. But for the last few years, it's really settled down. It used to jump every year, and it was like I was always eager to see what these numbers were. But it's settled down about to this point, about 35% of college admissions officers, quote, regularly and routinely will review applicant social media as part of their holistic review. And here, we had worked with this young lady, Meredith, and we do know that Northwestern did take a look at her LinkedIn when she invited them to do so, and it showcased, right, her work around student athletes and concussions. But moreover than the 35% that regularly and routinely look at it, 66% or 2/3 of college admissions officers believe that it is fair game. Okay, they don't look, but they're not against looking. And this is where where we come in. And this is when I first started this business back in 2013, I was told by people, college admissions officers don't have the time, Google somebody and find their Facebook page or find whatever. This is not about, leaving it to chance. Invite them to look. This is a student we work with, and Brown University certainly looked at her LinkedIn. But you put it in, you embed that social media link in your application, in your personal statement, and most of the schools are going to click. Not the University of Florida, not the University of Alabama, not Penn State. These are large state schools. They're algorithmic, okay? But some of the more selective larger schools, University of Michigan looks, Northwestern looks, and you can get down to the smaller schools. They'll certainly look. So again, here, the New York Times had done an article about our work, and it was with a student who got into Harvard, and we know because of LinkedIn that someone in the admissions office of Harvard looked at their LinkedIn with that invite. And it was written up in the Times, and the Harvard Crimson, the school student newspaper, questioned that. Do you really look at social media? And this, when asked point blank, Fitzsimmons, their dean of admissions, and he's still there, this was his answer. So yes, they'll definitely look at links that students offer. So this is a great way to set yourself apart and to showcase those items that you think, go to your strengths. And this is what it looks like. We just recently, this cycle, actually, somebody just sent that to me, that Harvard again looked at their profile. So it's pretty cool they're still doing it. And this is what we see. So if 35% of college admissions officers are looking at social media regularly and routinely, and 66 or 2/3 view it as fair game, presenting, a portfolio or presenting a character statement, as part of a curated social media profile is an untapped opportunity to deliver that differentiating data to schools. And again, I know this goes against a lot of what you've been told, and that is, you've always been told colleges and employers might be checking. So you've always, probably, the lessons have been learned not to post anything embarrassing, but nothing to hide is not the same as something to show. All right. And it's curating that kind of content that you can deliver to a college that you can't get on the Common App or an essay. And that's the beauty of this. And here, so we think LinkedIn is the best social media platform for supplementing your application. Here's, a student from New York. You can see the background photo is conveying so much information about her. It's like, that's an essay right there in the picture. Learning how to build a headline, which is what comes under the name. Environmental volunteer, chess enthusiast, honor student, and then an aspirational statement. Okay. You can put in, LinkedIn lets you, devise a little bit about, a few sentences about yourself. And then also when it's you can highlight your 5 top skills, but really, if you look at it, those skills are really character traits when done properly: academic achievement, leadership, intellectually curious. You kind of showing the schools, and if you can tie that into your into your profile, showing elements of that, so much the better. LinkedIn has this featured element where you can, kind of put a spotlight on things you're most proud of. And also it's a blogging platform. So this student who liked to write, took advantage of writing a little, couple of extra essays and then published it on LinkedIn. So it's part of her portfolio. LinkedIn and for a high school student, it's a good way to get started of taking a deeper dive into things that you're really proud of. This student we work with, you can see it's a little dated version of LinkedIn. I worked with him probably about 6 years ago, and he loved baseball and he wrote about it. He had his own blog, coverthosebases.com, and we helped him build this LinkedIn, and it connected to his blog, and it showcased, right, his analysis and his writing skills. He invited the schools that he applied to look at it, and they did, and he got accepted into Dartmouth, where he majored in data analytics, quantitative social science, and he kept his LinkedIn up to date. And after his junior year of school, he got an internship with the Washington Nationals baseball club for the summer. And then after that, he got a full-time job as a baseball operations strategist with the Baltimore Orioles. And he's there, and he's been growing his LinkedIn. So it was something that he used to showcase his love of baseball and his ability to write and his dedication there. And he stayed with it all the way through. And now he's got the job he always dreamed of having. So it is a lifelong investment. It doesn't only pay dividends at this point, but getting an early start on LinkedIn will certainly pay dividends, now and down the road. And LinkedIn also helps with the college search. This is one of my favorite elements. Once you build your LinkedIn and you can highlight and really put the spotlight on things you want colleges to know about you, you can then go back and follow schools on LinkedIn. But one of the things that I love about LinkedIn is if you look at the bottom, alumni, LinkedIn, right? There's about over 200 million Americans on LinkedIn. And we tell LinkedIn where we went to school, what we majored in, where we work, what we do, where we live. And LinkedIn pretty much just aggregates all that. So there was 304,000 alumni of Boston University on LinkedIn. 6,008 are currently students at BU, but you can see where they work, right? 791 at Google, 784 at Amazon, Microsoft. So there's a lot of information here, and you can drill it down. So you can actually see if I study economics and majored in economics with 16,000 people who majored in economics at BU who are on LinkedIn, you can see where they're working. And what it does give you for a lot of schools doing this, it gives you this, you can see the marketability of the degrees. Some degrees you can see, are very regional. They have import, within their community or their state or their region. Other schools are national. You can see that, a degree can take you anywhere. And I would think BU is probably one of those degrees. But each school is different. Some majors are more marketable than others. So what I love about it is that it's just pure data. It's just aggregated data. There's no subjectivity here. And you can really get a good idea of what works. And in the interest of time, I am done with that. So I want to just get through, that element, and open it up.
Awesome. And I think that the last part of that is probably one of my favorites, just because of like the data nerd side of me, where getting to see where people are, one, schools are looking at profiles, two, where they're going to work, right? So we're talking about ROI, right, in regards to your university and your degree, and being able to actually see that on a social media platform, like the way that that now works is just mind-boggling for me. Like, I love it. And so I just went in and double checked the students to make sure everybody did have their to-dos for LinkedIn, and you do. And I think can you, Alan, give a quick kind of run through of what to expect, like what that process looks like when people are doing that, or when students have
Yeah.
that? Thank you.
Yeah, great. I'll be happy to. So we've been doing this for a bunch of years, and I had this online course. We still have it, but would talk about why it's important to have a social media presence constructed just for college, apart from the stuff you do with your friends. And it would cover a few platforms. But when it got to LinkedIn, students just gave up on it. And I had mentioned that earlier, we realized it was because they're not familiar with LinkedIn. So we came up with this process. We call where we start. You get access to a online Google form. Okay, it takes about 10, 15 minutes to complete. You send it back to us, and then what we do is that we kind of construct from that the initial version of LinkedIn. And that's the starting point. So as a student, you can see yourself on LinkedIn, right? You can see how, that like your initial presentation. From there, we do a 45-minute in-depth face-to-face, right? FaceTime, or, a Zoom call, I should say, where we brainstorm how you can build on it. And then I show the student that if the parent wants to sit in, that's fine. How to use LinkedIn to build it out, how to follow the schools, everything I just covered in this presentation through this 45-minute session. And then we also do a follow-up, right? To brainstorm, and then there'll be one more get together to make sure everything was done properly. So it's a tutorial, but it's also delivering this value. So you're going to end up with with a LinkedIn profile, with an understanding on how to use it, how to build it, how to network, how to follow schools, how to do the research, and you can really hit the ground running.
Thank you. And so the link is in the chat. It's also in everybody's files under the Service Center, Scholar Service Center for the upgrades opportunity, if that's something that you want to take advantage of. And I think you said pretty sure all of our juniors are at least 16, but you have to be 16 in order to start a LinkedIn account, right, Ellen?
It is now 16, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions for Alan or for us in regards to the other things that we were chit-chatting about earlier? Feel free to put it in the chat. I'm going to screen share just kind of next steps with everybody, as well as we're waiting to see if there's any questions on things. So December session is what we call open office hours. There is not a topic. It is if you have questions, feel free to pop in and get them answered. It could be about selecting classes. It could be about standardized testing. It could be about college selection. Does not matter. If you have an inquiry, that is the point to drop in office hours. Anything is fair game. If you don't, then you don't need to attend. Those sessions are not recorded. Today's session will be in your files to reference. per usual, you will have a to-do to watch the recording if you missed it. So just make sure to mark those things complete on your to-dos tab as everybody needs their dopamine for the day. This is my favorite way to say it. So December 12th at 5 o'clock. And then here, as we get closer to the end of the year, kind of my goal the next couple of weeks is to get all of the to-dos in there for the next 6 months. So you will see those start to populate, so you can mark your calendars as well for the sessions that we have going forward till June of this next year. So that is what is on the futures agenda. You guys seem pretty easy. I don't see any other questions in the chat. No? Yeah. Well, Alan, I want to say thank you so much for spending the time and chit-chatting with us today. I always love this.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I love this session. So, then, yeah, if
Thank you.
anybody has any.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
So I'm going to stop recording.